Good afternoon, everybody, from a very sodden Carrow Road. The rain has temporarily, at least, paused here, and hopefully that will be the case for the remainder of the afternoon. Norwich City taking on Preston this afternoon in the Championship. Norwich with 3 wins in 4, Preston with 9 points in 12 games. So quite the meeting of two teams at the moment who are vying maybe to change the narratives around their season a little bit. Norwich City in particular ahead of what is a very big week for them. Home here against Sheffield on Wednesday. And then, of course, the small matter, an East Anglian derby at Portman Road next weekend. So this would be a brilliant opportunity if they could start with 3 points to do just that. And at 2 o'clock, which is about a minute and a half away, we will bring you the team news. Paddy, how are you feeling ahead of this one? The weather's not great, but let's hope
it's better now than it was this morning. Yeah, this morning was absolutely monsoon conditions in Norwich. I wasn't really concerned in terms of the game, but wouldn't have been the best spectacle. Norwich being such a smooth on the eye passing team, of course. Yeah. So what would rain have done to that? But I tongue out my cheek. But what am I expecting? Was that? Yeah. Not sure, Connor. Really. I mean, as you say, two teams not in the best of form over the last 10 or so games, but drill into that, and Norwich are 3 wins from 4. So of the two teams, Norwich should have a little bit more confidence. For me, we've seen what they've done on the road in that run, but it's 1 win in 4 now at Carrow Road, and that was a scratchy one against QPR. So, if what we've seen on the road recently was respite, then if we saw something today and then something against Sheffield Wednesday, ideally 6 points from 6, that's a bit more tangible in terms of, what's opening up in terms of possibilities from here.
Yeah, I agree, and the team news should drop in about 10 seconds or so, and we'll bring that to you. It's going to be interesting to see what David Wagner does around the centre-back situation, particularly with Kenny McLean. Does he keep him in? I suspect he probably won't. We're about to find out. And the fact is, Kenny McLean does remain as a central defender for Norwich City this afternoon. They start with Angus Gunn in goal, Stacey, Duffy, McLean and Giannoulis as the back 4, Sarah and Nunez as the midfield 2, Fashnacht and Hernandez are the 2 wide players, with Ashley Barnes and Adamida up front. I'll just read that for you again. Gunn in goal, Stacey, Duffy, McLean and Giannoulis as the back 4, Sarah and Nunez as the midfield 2, Fashnacht and Hernandez out wide, with Barnes and Adamida up front. The subs bench: Long, Fisher, McCallum, Bart, Gibbs, Forshaw, Saints, Rowe and Shemiswav Poaheta.
Going to answer this one, Connor. He's actually on the bench, and anybody who didn't think he was on the bench don't know what they're talking about. Move on. Thanks,
Daniel. What do you make of the team, Paddy? It's Kenny McLean at centre back. Let's start with there before we maybe work our way down. Surprise! I mean, it was an experiment that worked well. I think at Bristol City, gave Norwich a right foot, left foot balance, which has been the case, I think, in terms of what he wanted from Duffy and Gibson earlier on in the season. He spoke a lot about how much it helped them in possession. What do you make of him keeping his place there?
So let me get this right. So it's Gibbs and Rowe drop out, isn't it? Yeah. From the 11. Yeah. Ida and Hernandez come in. A little bit surprised. Fashnacht comes in, surprising in regard that at Colney earlier in the week, he talked about Preston having a physical threat, very good, get lots of balls into the box, and will look to test Norwich aerially. And that was kind of his reasoning why McLean came in at Bristol, that he didn't think Bristol would offer that threat, and that it'd be more about a left-sided balance, somebody good in possession could spark the play. Bristol probably wasn't going to press too aggressively. So if we're talking specifically about McLean, that is a surprise. But if he liked what he saw overall, I would debate that was a performance that would be encouraging moving forward in terms of consistency of performance. But if he drilled into it and liked the balance it gave, I thought Nunez was good, moving it further forward, and that's part of the equation. Nunez was good in that deeper line role. I asked him about that on Thursday, and he said, he really feels he's getting to grips with it now. And, further forward, Rowe, I think he looked like a player who'd been out for a few weeks, to be truthful, last Saturday, Sunday. Well, he was kind of his inability to press wide to the touchline. Ben Lee touched on it in his tactical report. That was actually the source of their goal, really, the first goal anyway. So I can see Rowe out. Still no science. And Gibbs out, that doesn't surprise me hugely. So, I suppose, I can see where he's going with it, and in the hope that that structure and the individuals within that structure got the job done last Sunday. Try and ride that wave and carry it on today, but it does leave it open again. So if it doesn't go for them today, what does it say about Norwich's centre-back options? And more broadly, what does it say about their recruitment? That we're now in a situation where Kenny McLean is deemed to be a better option than Danny Bart, Jayden Warner, et al. So we know Hanley and we know Gibson are just around the corner. Is it a bridge to that, or are we now starting to see something a bit different?
Yeah, and I guess the way he's geared up there, is that a suggestion that you think that he's probably expecting more possession today? Because I think we spoke, and actually I'm just looking above me, Will Keane is on the bench. Ched Evans is still a relatively physical force at this level in particular. But is that an expectation, do you think, that he is anticipating a game where Norwich City see more of the ball?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you'd certainly want them to have more of the ball, because then you'd hope they were dictating a little bit more of the ebb and flow and the tempo of this game and the structure of it. And if McLean in that position with Núñez slightly deeper alongside Zara gives them that control of the ball, then I think that is a positive. That's definitely a positive, no doubt about it. But you do worry if Preston are, by all accounts, a very direct side, that puts a lot of onus on Duffy, because I don't think Stacey or Yanulis are particularly good defensively, are they? So, it'll be about, can Norwich be the aggressor? Because if they're not, then we'll find out very swiftly what Kenny McLean is like as a defensively minded centre-back. And I think the jury's definitely out on that. In possession, yeah, you wouldn't have any concerns about him at all. Again, David, as last Sunday, will either be seen as very brave or foolhardy, won't he? Thank you. And, last Sunday, it fell the right side, and let's hope it's the case today as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I maybe thought he would go back and bring Bart in and push McLean further up. Thank you very much for this game. But that hasn't been the case, and that to me feels like an omission that maybe he's hoping Norwich City can see a little bit more of the ball this afternoon. If we go to wide areas, Paddy, Hernandez, who I felt particularly first up at Bristol City, played okay last weekend. After it's been a really difficult patch for him, I think by his own admission. Certainly not had the output that he would be expecting, or that Norwich fans would be expecting. Fashnak back in as well. They've been kind of in and out a little bit. What do you make of those wide options? We've spoken a little bit about Rowe, and perhaps the reasons for him dropping out is obviously just come back from a heel injury, which I think has been quite hard to manage. Do you see enough there in the attacking department from those two in particular to give Norwich the thrust in this game against the Preston side, who defensively have been okay this year?
Well, I mean, the important probably element in that conversation is Adam Ida, isn't it? He gets a start today off the back of the super sub tag, and clearly he would be less than impressed to be labelled that, and I'm sure he wants to start games. Well, okay, you've got another opportunity today. He didn't really cover himself, I didn't think, at Watford that night. But there's no doubt, we've seen it now consistently off the bench in the right environment. He is a goal threat, and whether a Fashnak and a Hernandez pairing in terms of wide offers that type of service, I think the jury again is out on that. What you'd hope, if Norwich have more possession, that should release Yanulis and Stacey, and that's their strongest suit, is getting beyond the Hernandez, getting beyond the Fashnak, providing a little bit of service, getting Zara further forward in and around the opposition penalty box. But yeah, I think it's fair to say neither Fashnak or Hernandez is probably going to set the pulse race in terms of what they'll offer as an offensive pair. But if it's within a template where Ida continues where he left off last weekend, with Barnes there to guide him and kind of maybe take some of that physical attention away, and that might free him to sort of play in those pockets down the channels of the centre-backs. But I think really looking at that, if we're talking purely about Norwich as an attacking unit, for me, we'll know if it's working if we see Stacey bombing on one side and Yanulis the other. Because if they've been released to get themselves beyond the halfway line, that to me would indicate Norwich are in the ascendancy.
Yeah, agreed. Let's bring you that Preston team and his times of seasons greetings and all that joy. And they're playing a Christmas tree, which is great. Woodman in goal, Story, Watmore and Lindsay as the back three, Potts, McCann, Whiteman and Hughes as the midfield four, Miller and Brown behind Ched Evans. Interesting. That's a very similar formation to the one they played a couple of weeks ago at Middlesbrough, and they got beat 4-0. Ryan Lowe has had to come out on the offensive this week and speak about fan frustration and frustration around the club. They were beaten by QPR last Friday, so they've had a lengthy period since their last game, and I think there's probably an expectation that there will be a response of some description. It is interesting. What in terms of the bench makeup, I guess it shows where Norwich are with strikers. No recognised striker on the bench. Borja Sainz is on there. I guess Liam Gibbs, who has played in those forward areas as well. It's you do look at it, and I think you're glad that there's some light at the end of the tunnel now in terms of those injury concerns that Norwich have.
Primarily Sargent, isn't it? Yeah. but we're still talking at best Huddersfield, which is, I think, 2 weeks on from today, and one particularly large game in between there and then. So go on, Adamida, go on. You must know, behind closed doors, he knows Sargent is quite clearly on the cusp of being back involved. He also knows that at the start of the season it was Sargent Barnes and he was the super sub again. So if he doesn't want to be cast in that role, then he's got only one or two, maybe more opportunities to really stake a claim. And if he doesn't, yeah, exactly. If we get a sort of an unconvincing performance from him from the start again today, and you're looking at, well, how does Wagner change it? Then it probably has to be that. It probably has to be either off, Barnes stays on, and then in and around it, you drop a Johnny Rowe, drop a Borja Sainz maybe later in the game. Other than that, I don't see too much else in terms of should the game require it into the second half. Too much that can change it up other than clearly the two obvious ones on our bench, which is Sainz and Rowe. So, yeah, but I'm less concerned about there isn't an out-and-out striker in that replacements because, even today it's quite unusual, really, post Sargent and Barnes both being injured. He's gone with two. He's been able to go with two recognised strikers. So I think what you'd see is if it needed it, one would come off and one would stay on, and then in and around that you can add some other creative elements. So yeah, less concerned about that. It's really, I think this game for me, moving it on now, is if Zara and Nunes can establish a measure of control, release those attacking fullbacks, link well with Barnes, who's very intelligent, despite, he looks like this rough and tumble. He's very game intelligent. The way he drops deep, drags centre-backs out of position, that can then something that Ida can exploit. Fashnakton and Hernandez can, have a good day at the office, and I think Norwich win the game. But for me, Nunes and Sarah have to exert that control, and they did it in spells at Bristol, but I think Wagner hit the nail on the head. I thought both halves, first 15, 20 minutes of each half at Bristol, Norwich were a better side, but thereafter, Bristol dictated, I felt. With that, Angus made one or two decent stops. It wasn't incessant pressure, but the ebb and flow of the game was towards the Norwich goal rather than the Bristol goal. So if Nunes and Sarah can tip the balance there today, then I think Norwich get that control, look decent going forward, because we've seen it all season. Even though it's been patchy and frustrating and inconsistent, they do have players in progressive positions who can hurt opposition. We understandably, a lot of focus is the goals conceded column, but look at the goals for column. They're right up there in terms of goals scored in the Championship. They have that in their locker, individually and collectively, but they haven't been able to exert enough control over games in this particular run, this 10, 11, 12 game run. So do that today centrally. I think they win the game 2-1.
Yeah, and I would agree. Actually, I think Norwich win the game, and I think I'm going to agree. I think they win it 2-1 as well. But just to broaden this out, Paddy, we referenced right at the start, big week, 2 home games within that before just a small little game on the horizon next weekend at Portman Road. But just purely zoning in on these 2 home games, they need 6 points, don't they?
Well, yeah. Well, yes, but four's par.
You think 4 would do enough?
Well, in the context of what, in terms of the mood, in terms of momentum, in terms of proximity to the top 6?
Yeah. I'm not sure 4 points would get them that far up the table.
Well, it would nudge them a bit closer, you would think, than they are now. But no, it wouldn't convince that right here we are. That is now firmly behind us, what's gone before in that 10, 11 game block. And now it's all about up and at them and let's get into the derby. But I think 4 out of 6 you'd take. Wouldn't be.
Not sure I would.
Well, you're far less willing to accept what I'm in this context, but because I go back to what I said earlier, 1 win from 4 Carrow Road games. That body of work, results-wise, performance-wise, doesn't fill me with confidence that you can nail your colours to the mast and say they'll get 2 wins. Yes, I'd agree that they need to get 2 wins in terms of the bigger picture, but do I think they can get 6? Yeah, well, I do think they can get 6. Will I? No, I think it's 4 points from the next 6. And then we'll see where that leaves them in terms of A, the table, and B, more importantly, because it's on the horizon, is going into that Ipswich game in terms of the mood music around that. But yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Really, if you're looking at it, when we said it on the way up to the stairs from the press room, that Zoe Webber's column today in the programme explicitly talks about a playoff push. The words are there, black and white. So if that's the mood now, and they're willing to publicly message that, playoffs, then that's how we have to measure this group, this head coach, these games coming up. And if it's talking about playoffs, 6 points from 6, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And then next weekend, for people it will be, certainly if Norwich gets 6 points, everyone will go into that feeling, I don't know, necessarily more confident, but certainly maybe a little bit more optimistic than they are currently. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll, of course, Blinking Channels, you can come and join us. We've got an offer on in terms of subscriptions as well. You can go and check that over on our site. Very good offer for people, isn't it?
Very good. But we're biased, but you know, thousands think it's a good offer so far. So come and join us. Come and join us.
Exactly. Enjoy the game if you're coming along, or if you're following from afar. And fingers crossed, Norwich City can record another much-needed win. See you soon.